Careful now.
Boing.
So cool to be playing vinyl.
Took the record off the turntable.
You ready for this?
Welcome to Behind the Vinyl. Here's your host, Stu Jeffries.
Hey, thanks for listening. This is the podcast for the music lover that needs to know just a little more about their favorite artists and songs. In this episode, Steve Earle reveals something that I'm willing to bet no one knew about the intro of his song, Copperhead Road.
Bagpipe patch. It's not a sample, it's not a bagpipe.
Stick around and find out what it is. Meantime, until we get to Mr. Earle, Gowan loads up the turntable with his song Strange Animal and shares a cool story about what a certain Beatles member thought of his cowbell in the song.
Oh, yeah. The cowbells. The Jerry Marotta cowbells. Yeah. I've heard the song thousands and thousands and thousands of times, you know, even before it came out, and then a lot of times since. But those cowbells, I always make reference to them because we recorded the record. People may know it, a place called Tittenhurst Park, where Ringo Starr was living in 1984. And, well, we actually entered the studio on February the 7th, 1984. February 7th, 1964, the Beatles came to Canada. So 20 years to the day we entered, and David Tickle, the producer, he loved this song among the demos that I had, and he said, I just think that title, Strange Animal, is fantastic, you know, and I agreed. I thought, well, that's great. But those cowbells, the reason I keep coming back to is when Jerry Marotta, you know, legendary drummer, maybe the greatest musician I've ever been in a room with, he kept playing them, and I thought, are we overusing those cowbells? I've made reference to this before, and I remember, but 3 days later, Ringo came into the studio, because the studio was attached right onto the kitchen of the house, and he said, did everything work out? I'm not going to do a Ringo impression because I've done too many bad ones, but he said, did everything work out from the other day? I heard you having a big disagreement in here, and I thought it was sounding great. I said, what was that about? And he said, you kept going on about the bloody cowbells, saying, you know, the record sounds really great, but what about those bloody cowbells? And he said, well, I love them. And I thought, God, it's funny he says it now, because 24 hours later, I love them too. You know, so I had to, I'm retracting, going, no, more cowbell. It was the first time that phrase was ever uttered, by the way. So, and then Jerry and I doing those background vocals of the ooh, ah, ooh, ah. Yeah. Tremendous. There's definitely magic in this song, you know, in the song, but in the recording of it. You know, David Tickle was such a quintessential producer in the 80s, and he really understood the type of sound it should have. And again, that Fairlight doing and the wolf howl, those are all Fairlight sounds. Fairlight was a kind of a electronic, first computer keyboard that there ever was, sampling keyboard, and they were tough to come by. And again, this part I always envisioned the video, so I brought props today, because now radio's on TV now, so the original bone of the original Strange Animal video, which is basically how you could get your song heard back then, was to get it on TV first. Wow. This section of the song here, as Tony Levin begins to really open up on the bass, I remember in the studio that, because he was overdubbing this bass part right here, where he starts doing those slides, he was playing sitting down, and then suddenly he just burst up and started completely going into that whole section. If anybody's seen Tony Levin with Peter Gabriel or with any of the acts he's ever played, he's an intense individual to watch when he's playing. And he was so animated suddenly at this whole section of the song, and he was just, I was so, yes, I was knocked out with it. I was especially knocked out with it because in 1981 I saw Peter Gabriel at the Gardens, and they used to come down through the crowd, and Tony went right by me. I'd never met him, and they came through the crowd, and I remember putting my arm around him, and he looked at me with the big flashlight, and I said, Tony, we're going to make a record one day. and we made this record together. That actually happened. And God, this is the same place where John Lennon made Imagine. He built this home studio. So there's no way I can ever listen to it without kind of getting a phenomenal emotional charge about the whole thing.
There's Gowan, Strange Animal on Behind the Vinyl, the podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Stu Jeffries. Pukka Orchestra band members Neil Chapman and Tony Duggan-Smith stopped by with their song Listen to the Radio, along with some insight as to who one of the co-writers was for it. It might surprise you.
Drop the needle, Tony.
I'm dropping the needle. It's going down.
Here goes. Oh, it's so close.
God, and yet so far.
So close. Wow, seems like yesterday.
It is like yesterday.
And a lot of...
Although it wasn't.
Yeah, this song was the only song that we didn't write on the album, and it was written by Tom Robinson
And Peter Gabriel. Yes, two fine writers. And Peter Gabriel is probably one of my biggest heroes in the world. And the record company that we were with at the time, we got this record deal through Norm Corbett and William Tenn and Frank Davies, who got us the deal with Solid Gold Records. And they loved the album. They said, we need a single. We need a single that is not on the album yet. Yeah.
Right? So much to our chagrin at the time, they played us this, and we liked the song, and all we wanted to do was original music. And but we agreed to record this after we'd recorded the rest of the album. And we went,
It proved to be a blast.
It was really fun.
In the end,
yeah.
all the sort of thoughts of like doing someone else's work. Number one, it's actually a cool song. It's kind of, the original version is pretty dark, and we just had a ton of fun recording it. We decided, let's have a blast in the process rather than sort of feeling funny about it. So we did.
I would be curious to see what Tom Robinson and Peter Gabriel thought of our version. I have this vision of Tom Robinson coming and saying, "You've ruined our song."
Yes, I have this vision of them enjoying the royalties for years and years.
Yeah, enjoying the royalties, no doubt. Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was a blast doing it.
Yeah. We
did it at Eastern Sound.
Eastern Sound, okay,
Eastern Sound, yeah. It was in Yorkville at the time, on Yorkville. And with Eugene Martinick, he helped produce it. We brought Jorn Anderson in on drums.
Yep.
Howard A. on bass. And Dave McMorrow on keyboards.
Yep.
And we played
all
the
fine
guitars.
Musicians.
Yeah. And
I think I played the strings on the piano there too.
Yeah, you did some sort of thing. And Dennis Akiyama was on trumpet on it.
It's coming up any moment.
Yeah. And
awesome player.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
Very fun.
It was a bit of a whirlwind as well. I mean, we were sort of rushing along, trying to get the whole thing finished, and doing a lot of gigging as well at the time, because we'd been playing a lot all over the city and outside. Because the live band thing was really important to us at the time. So.
Yeah, we were playing the Turning Point on Bloor Street.
Our first gig at
the Turning Point, where we coined the name of the band.
Yeah.
Tony got a letter from his grandfather who'd been over, and we'd been in England and visited him. God bless him. And he wrote. Tony told him he was playing music for a living, and his grandfather, he's from he was in the Punjab and whatnot.
Yeah, he was in India.
In India,
the early 20th century.
He wrote a letter to Tony and said, "Dear Tony, it's wonderful that you're playing music, but don't fool around with any little bands. Get yourself into a Pukka orchestra."
Yeah, which for him was like a taste and kind of style of orchestra sort of decision rather than
a Pukka meaning top notch.
Yeah, top notch.
Yeah.
And as soon as we read the letter, we all kind of looked at each other and was like, "This is the perfect name."
It's the perfect name
because it has
band.
nothing to do with his intention, but at the same time, in terms of how we felt about the band, creatively, I mean, I think for all of us, it was a magical time that the three of us had been thrown together.
Yeah, with Graham as our other partner in the endeavor. Graham Williamson, genius songwriter. And so when we did the song, the funky guitar bit off the top, it was sort of similar to what they had, but I sort of funked it up a bit. And And
no, it had a sort of a very subliminal sense of humor about it. It wasn't totally about, like the original sort of conveys the misery of East Germany. And this certainly didn't. It more contained the fun of Toronto at the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it was also popular.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people love this song.
Pukka Orchestra with Listen to the Radio on Behind the Vinyl. You have no idea how thrilled we were to have the legendary Steve Earle stop by our studios with his copy of Copperhead Road. Steve's a real straight-to-the-point kind of guy, and he knows his music and what he wants out of it. It's a classic tune with an iconic intro that, well, it isn't what you think it is. Steve explains.
Bagpipe patch. It's not a sample, and it's not a bagpipe. It's a custom-built analog synth patch that my keyboard player, Kenny Moore, built from scratch. And I wanted bagpipes because it sounded lonesome. And I always, from the time that I wrote the song just on mandolin, the first song I ever played on mandolin too, I knew 2 chords on mandolin when we recorded this. And I'd gotten a hold of a mandolin. A friend of mine gave me trying to learn how to play it, and I learned how to play that, and that was it. And the story had been around for a while. I've been like, I got to Tennessee in 1974, and sometime in 75, I'm working at a pizza parlor in Nashville, and there was a news story about a woman that had been arrested in Elizabethton, North Carolina. And the Vietnam War is just ending, and they arrested this 76, 77-year-old woman in Elizabethton, North Carolina, with this big, huge plantation of pot in the holler in the mountains. And they asked her where she got the idea to do that. And so her sons had both come back from Vietnam with big sacks of seeds. And they'd been a moonshining family for a long time. And they'd done this other prohibited substance that they could market. And they knew how that worked. The idea that stuff that was illegal was worth more money than legal goods were. And I don't know, this record was, I'd made Guitar Town and Exit Zero, and it became obvious to me that country radio wasn't going to keep playing the things. My first record did pretty well, spotty at country radio in the States. Kind of every other single that was released did well. And then by Exit Zero, I was sort of, the second album, I was sort of ignored. So I went to London. I was producing a record there, and I crashed a cocktail party where Irving Azoff, who ran MCA Records at the time, and David Simone, who was getting ready to start heading up an imprint called Uni Records, and I'd heard about it, were having a party to launch the label. And I walked up and said I wanted to be on Uni, and they said, well, Uni's not about country. And Irving was kind of smiling as he said, Uni's not going to be about country. It's going to be about hip-hop and rock and roll. And I said, then I'll make a rock and roll record. And, it's still pretty country. But it's, I went to Memphis to make it because I kind of had to. Jimmy Bowen, who ran the Nashville division, and Irving Azoff hated each other, and I think Irving protected me as much to irritate Bowen as it was actually liking me. But it did give me I was able to go to Memphis and make this record the way that I wanted to. It's still a digital recording. It's pretty slick. It's on Mitsubishi digital tape, but it's we were. Joe Hardy recorded this. He's the guy that recorded Afterburner and Eliminator, those ZZ Top records, and he, it was the same studio working with those guys. But it was my band as it existed at the time. I didn't have a drummer. My drummer had just left, so a guy named Kurt Custer came in. He was in a band called Little America. Came in and played drums, but the rest of the guys were guys from my band and a few guests. And I learned a lot about recording. I learned a lot of stuff from Joe Hardy in the process of making this record that I still do to this day. And I still play the song pretty much every night because I want to get out of there alive. And it's like somebody asked me if I got sick of it, and he said, you don't get sick of songs that sort of give you a way to make a living at something that you do that you love.
Steve Earle, Copperhead Road on Behind the Vinyl. That's it for this episode, but we've got lots more for you to listen to if you've got more time. We appreciate you listening and the support with shares. The more people that know about us, the better. Thanks for listening.
This has been Behind the Vinyl, the podcast, hosted by Stu Jeffries. Audio production courtesy of Doug Morehouse, Derek Welsman, and Troy McCallum. Thanks for listening.